All right, at this time, I'm going to call this meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education to order. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of a discussion relative to the superintendent's contract and any other business that may be appropriate in this executive session. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. At this time, we're going to move into executive session. All right, at this time, we are still technically in executive session, so before we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to take a motion to move out of executive session and back into this regular meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education.
So moved.
The motion has been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nay. The motion carries. At this time, we are back in session for this August 14th meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education, and at this time, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we begin all meetings with public comment. I have one individual signed up, Mr. Mali, at this time.
Good evening, honorable members. Lawrence Public School on the road to become the best public school in our nation. The best leadership by Honorable Superintendent Cynthia Parrish, our public school moving forward. Since her arrival, our city implementation of best positive constructive plan, such as 100 days just listening to school staff and our community. The school budget that empowers staff and leaders to provide the best education for our children and our community. Our awesome teachers and the union must know we are behind them 100%. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for being the best. We are united in support of Honorable Cynthia Parrish's leadership, support our magnificent teacher to make the best public school. The great Nelson Mandela said, indeed, the education, the most powerful weapon to overcome all the barriers, economic barriers, language and cultural barriers. Our citizens are united in the upcoming anniversary of September 13. Our scars of the Columbia gas fires is still in our city. Honorable Superintendent Cynthia Parrish kept our schools open. My neighbor is still homeless after the fire of September 13. We demand Maura Haley, Massachusetts Attorney General, to resign because she failed to do anything. We continue to support our custodial employees for better wages and better rights. Million thanks to Honorable Mayor Rivera for historical move granting our senior police officers contract. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Rivera. We demand of you to declare August 28 of every year the Day of the Teacher Appreciation, so our citizens and children appreciate our teachers and their union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mali. At this time, I want to recognize that we're joined tonight by Kim Berry, President of the Lawrence Teachers Union. We thank her for being here. We greatly appreciate her presence. Also, just want to acknowledge that the LTU Vice President, Lori Burnham, is also here. Vice President Tricia Woolley is here as well. Kathy Delaney, the Treasurer. Cheryl Travers, the Financial Secretary. Jen Cahill, Jen, what's your title? Corresponding Secretary. Thank you. Mindy Richard, the recording secretary, and I believe we also have an AFT Massachusetts representative, Gino O'Toole's here. We appreciate all these representatives of our great teachers here in Lawrence. We appreciate your presence tonight. I want to mention that Mayor Rivera will not be present tonight, but he has sent Anna from his office, who is here on his behalf and attended our earlier sessions. Thank you for being here on the mayor's behalf. We were in executive session on two matters, and we had two motions come up in executive session. I just want to bring those up again here in the opening meeting just to memorialize those votes. The chair would accept a motion to accept the proposal of the superintendent to convert 10 unused vacation days to compensation from 2018-19 and to roll over the remaining 7 vacation days. Could I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion has carried. We have a second motion to authorize the chair of the Lawrence Alliance of Education Board to execute the proposed contract between the Lawrence Public Schools and Laborers Local 175 Lawrence Public Schools custodians on behalf of the Lawrence Alliance of Education, provided that Laborers Local 175 Lawrence Public Schools custodian ratify the proposed agreement according to the form, terms, and provisions provided to the Lawrence Alliance for Education in its executive session this evening. Could I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
That motion is on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Okay. Moving to the report of the chair, I have just one piece that I want to just raise, and that is that following many of the issues that we took up last year, we found that this notion of earned autonomy by schools in accordance with the open architecture system that that we use here in Lawrence kept coming up when we took on issues last year on ranging on everything from the calendar to EMO contracts. And so an initiative that I am going to undertake this year at this board level, so something that we will regularly brief the board on, will be an effort to come up with an earned autonomy framework so that we have specific guidelines around how we use autonomy here in Lawrence, and at what points is it appropriate, and at what points is it something that where we wish to have it dealt with in a different way. And I would raise last year when we approved changes to the calendar, that those were some ways in line with shifting the balance of autonomy from the school to the central office, and then adopted a uniform policy for all schools. So in what cases are those appropriate, and what cases is it appropriate to put the decisions at the school site level? We're going to work this year on an earned autonomy framework. I will have an in-depth briefing on this in September, but I just wanted to put it on your radar right now. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent for her report. Superintendent?
Thank you. First, I want to welcome 2 new team members in our leadership central office. I want to welcome Marisol Sheets, our new assistant superintendent, who's sitting in our audience today. Marisol joined us about a month ago, and she's been quite busy learning more about our districts and heavy emphasis and focus on our high school. We also onboarded Maciel Jordan, who is our CFO, and Maciel also arrived earlier this summer, who's also been quite busy getting herself acquainted with all of our schools and all of the in and out of the finances of the district. So we are extremely happy to have them both, and we welcome them both to their first meeting of the year. Next, I wanted to share a few highlights of our summer. We've had quite a busy summer. It's been a successful summer overall. As you all know, we continue to have programming and interventions and supports for our students throughout the year. That was incredibly successful. We also received funding, the 21st Century funding for our schools with extended learning time. Those are big grants, and so Partham Elementary as well as the Gilmet Elementary and Middle are recipients of those grants. These are exemplary programs for ELT that the state awarded us, and we're extremely happy that we're going to continue to receive extended time for our students. I also wanted to highlight that 5 new schools were added to the Family Engagement Fellowship and started earlier this month with that work. So at the end of this year, we will have a total of 11 schools who have joined that partnership. So I think next up we'll do EMOs.
Yep. Do you, Superintendent, if we take them sort of one at a time,
Yep.
do you want to give an overview of each
Highlights
one?
of them. Yeah, I'm going to ask Anne-Marie Stronach to join us at the table, and we'll entertain questions that you all may have. But yeah, we can take them one at a time. So in your materials, you have first the UP Education Network. And as you all know, we have 2 schools that are managed by the network. The highlights of this contract include us continuing to have, they will continue to have academic oversight and all the operational oversights as they have in the past. This is a 2-year contract that we've negotiated with the network. It also includes things like a very thoughtful PD plan for our schools that is a mix of them being here in Lawrence and then extending time to the network in Boston. It includes oversight of their staffing. It also includes a very careful look at their calendar and their PD and the time that they use. We will take specific questions that you all might have, and Marie has also more specific, if you wanted to highlight anything else on that contract.
I think one other area I would like to highlight is that in addition to the things that you had just mentioned, we are also going to be utilizing the Teach Point evaluation system at both of these schools. And I know that we've been working with the partnership, meaning the Lawrence Teachers Union and the school administration across the board to look at evaluation, and this is one benefit of that work. We're still ongoing with that committee, but that is reflected in this contract.
Great. Questions on this contract? Pat?
I don't know if I can do this at this time. It's general questions concerning all the EMOs. Is that okay if we, I can ask them?
Yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we present all 3, and then we'll open questions on any of them, and then we'll vote on them individually. But why don't we just get presentations on all 3 up front? I suspect they'll be fairly similar, so. Superintendent?
Yeah, I'll add that the school operational plans are attached to these. These were approved by you all earlier in the springtime. They were vetted carefully by the leadership team during budget process, and so they're attached to each of these contracts. The next contract that you have in front of you is Community Day, which leads CDA. This is a transition year for CDA, as you all remember, and so there's transition language in this contract to reflect that. What will happen next with CDA is that we're going to convene a stakeholder group and think through with Arlington Middle what are the next steps for the school in general. There are no other bigger highlights in here. It remains pretty much the same.
I would just like to note that the executive director, Maria Molnar, is joining us tonight.
Great.
Thank you for coming.
The next contract is Lawrence Family Development, and as you know, they have two of our schools. They have a preschool that they oversee, as well as RISE. The preschool's highlights of this contract include some thinking around their current curriculum and the structure of that. We've negotiated that the school will enter into some what we call play-based learning. It's really hands-on, really opportunities for student to do center-based learning, and so that is a year of piloting also for this contract. Any other highlights on this one for Family Day?
No, it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, everything else.
Great. So we've got three contracts on the floor. Any questions on either specific aspects or specific contracts or generally, Pat?
I'll just add, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that LFA also has RISE. And so this one, I'm going to have Anne Marie brief us on. This one does have a few more things that we sort of negotiated with RISE.
So as you know, our RISE program is a program that started last year, also works with re-engaging some of our high school students to address a population that is challenged by school. It is a vocational, it has some vocational aspects of it, and there have been some challenges at the RISE as we opened up last year. We are looking at other placement opportunities which could be available to the city. That is why this contract took a little bit more time to work out in terms of the MOU. We worked very, very hard with the LFA to work on this MOU. There is possible transition language in this if we do find other available space, if that presents itself. So you'll see some things in there. You'll also see that there is some language in terms of consumables. Prior, there were straight language about what the costs were in terms of the food service program, and some of those students get paid for work that they do. So there is a component in there that students could potentially earn. So we took that out of the monthly and put it in a different line item. So that is a little bit different to this. There is a little bit of a nuance to that that will hopefully held some accountabilities a little bit tighter. We're very excited about this, and we want to thank all the people that working on this contract at LFA, Ralph Carrero, and Paul Heides, and Judy Marley.
Great.
Just a question. Oh,
Let me go to Pat first, and then I'll go to you, Julia. Pat?
All right, as I reviewed the different EMOs, they have the headings, the sections are basically the same. And under the management and operation authority and responsibilities section, I'm looking at CDA, it's section E. The paragraph refers to student evaluation. The students participate in all the required assessments, etc., and statistical information is maintained for each student, the grade, and the school. If the students are not showing significant growth over a period of time, let's say 3 years, for example, would this be a reason not to renew the contract or to rework the contract, look at the curriculum? What do we do in a case like that?
So what I would say to that is similarly to some work that we're doing with LFA, that is a protection for the district in terms of some shared visions on what the expectations are and to ensure that there is rigorous curriculum. Obviously, we believe that these are proven partners and there is that opportunity. But that is a section that if we feel that there needs to be some engagement, we can insert ourselves in there. The contracts are 3 years. In this case, it's a 1-year contract because of the transition. But these are conversations that happen every day in this district with these leaders and with the management companies. I know that the superintendent meets with them regularly. So those are ongoing conversations as we review data of all of our schools. So similarly speaking, yes, there's ways for us to address it contractually, but we're operating under the same guidance that we would in any school, holding them to those high standards.
I'll just add, Pat, that this is a good example in this provision here for us to have an earned autonomy framework, because it would be really helpful for us to have that kind of flexibility as we look at, data, concrete data, and then think about the earned autonomy framework for the EMOs.
All right, and as a follow-up, Section 5 talks about LPS responsibilities. It refers to the superintendent conducting an annual evaluation of the programs. Have any evaluations been done in the past, and was one completed at the end of this last school year?
So I don't have any records of formal evaluations. I think it's, again, part of the conversation about earned autonomies. As you know, in the winter, we did have some autonomies curbed to a couple of our EMO schools. And so that's the work that I'm excited about that this board will take so that we can have formal, reports on each of the EMOs on a yearly basis.
Okay, thank you.
Julia?
Thank you. My question is pertaining to, I believe it was the Academy that last year, when we were presented with the school plan, there were some issues regarding the development, the staff development. Am I correct that that's superintendent?
Yeah, that's right. So what they had been in practice, they had additional time for professional development for the schools. And so as we did an analysis of how that time was being used and the results of that, this is an example of how we curbed that, and we made it a district-wide sort of calendar to support that.
So they did agree.
So
to go
it is
with
an
the
adjustment, and you see that in the plan.
All right. That was my question. Thank you.
Other questions? Ventura?
I guess maybe just a point of clarification, or maybe just to confirm, because I know we spent, several meetings and several finance committee meetings looking at the budget and just really, going school by school and approving each school's budget. So I guess I'm just confirming that these agreements are in line with the budget figures that we reviewed and approved.
That's correct. These are budgeted for, and those were approved back in the winter.
Yep, thank you.
Noemi?
The only question that I have is regarding of one of the EMOs where they were talking about a pilot program with the teachers. And I was trying to figure out the evaluation piece, because if it's the first year that the teachers are doing, and I know that you're working with the teachers union, to put it in simple ways, if the teacher has a quote-unquote bad evaluation, it might not be a reflection of the teacher, but because it's a pilot and they're learning in the process. So do you have, how do you deal with that piece?
So they all have evaluation systems.
Mm-hmm.
We use TeachPoint in the majority of our schools.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to be using TeachPoint as the way to report out. As you know, our teachers union contract is subject, their salary increase is subject to their evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
If the teacher does not agree that their evaluation was appropriate, they can put in a reflection into TeachPoint, and that becomes part of the record. And if it is a salary increase, we actually have an appeal process. It is consistent of 2 Lawrence Public School administrators, 2 LTU, and then we have a 5th person who is a professor at UMass Lowell who serves on that committee to take a look at the evaluation so that it is objective rather than subjective. So that is the process for the evaluation. There's always been a mechanism. It's just that their mechanism with school autonomy, they were able to use a different system. But the ratings are still the same. We're still held to the DESE rubric. They're still held to all those same things. It's just the same system, which is something that teachers that moved from, an EMO school, which to a traditional school rathered. So that was a
Okay.
conversation.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add that the system is just an electronic tool for the educator and the evaluator to capture feedback. to have conversations, to be reflective, and it just houses the information.
Okay.
We do stress overall in our district that the conversations and progress and goals is what matters. So the system is just a very technical piece of the entire process of supervision and evaluation.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would just add to that, that we're really looking at evaluations as a tool to improve rather than a tool to say, got you, which is, I think, the direction you were going in.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion, so let me just actually as a, just to state for the record and make sure that, just to remind everybody on LAE, these EMO contracts, the contracting parties are the EMO and the LAE. So this is a contract with the board in the role of receiver of the Lawrence Public Schools. Okay. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to authorize the chair of the Lawrence Alliance for Education to enter into a contract with the Up Education Network to manage and operate the Up Academy Leonard School and the Up Academy Oliver School as part of the district turnaround plan for a period of 2 years commencing on August 15th, 2019 and expiring on June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So the motion has been put on the floor and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to authorize the chair of the Lawrence Alliance of Education to enter into a contract with Community Group, Inc., to manage and operate the Community Day Arlington Elementary School as part of the district turnaround plan for a period of 1 year commencing on August 15th, 2019 and expiring on June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. I just want to make sure I state this all right. At this time, I would entertain a motion to authorize the chair of the Lawrence Alliance of Education to enter into a contract with Lawrence Family Development, Inc. to continue to manage and operate a 2-year kindergarten program, or a 1 year, sorry, to continue to manage and operate a kindergarten program at the Lawrence Family Public Academy as part of the district turnaround plan for a period of 1 year commencing on August 15th, 2019 and expiring on June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. We have one more. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to authorize the chair of the Lawrence Alliance for Education to enter into a contract with Lawrence Family Development, Inc. To provide a facility and certain services related to the RISE program for a period of 1 year commencing on August 15th, 2019 and expiring on June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you very
Chairman,
much.
just a question.
Yep.
And I should have asked before, but it took me kind of by surprise. With the App Academy, why do we have a 2-year contract, and with the other schools, only 1 year? Is there a reason for that? I'm sure it had to do with negotiations, but can you just,
I'm happy to comment on that. I think traditionally, we've had them for 3 years. And with my arrival and transitioning and this idea of us thinking about an earned autonomy framework, we thought it would be best that we keep the new contracts with the network, with Up Network, to 2 years. And then with RISE and the preschool, those are also transition years for the pilot that we're doing with the preschool, and then the possible move in space with RISE. And then the last one with CDA, there was a transition in leadership there, and so they've opted to do a transition year, which will be, this would be their last year.
so based on the way these contracts were executed, it gives us the impression that that the App Academy or the network is performing up to par based on our requirements.
So far, they're meeting our expectations, and we continue to be in close communication and work with them closely on those expectations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is the proposed attendance and family engagement policies. I'll turn it back over to the superintendent.
Yep, so Denise Snyder is going to brief us on this. As you all remember, back in June, she gave us an extensive discussion and review of the attendance and family engagement policy. At your request, she has drafted a one-pager for the changes to that policy. They're in your materials. In addition, she has spent time with principals and other stakeholders to discuss the intricacies of this policy and the implementation of it. And so Denise is ready to give you the update on that.
I do have one question before we get started. And this is a new policy in addition to the ones we presented back in June. I'm not sure when the voting on the other policies from June that should happen tonight, if that's happening as part of this presentation or afterwards.
Yeah, we're ready to vote on those as well tonight.
Okay.
And so if you want, Denise, if it's okay with you, if you can brief us on the one-pager, which was the request from the last meeting, and then this revised proposal.
Sure, okay. So back in June, one of the requests or feedback around the attendance policies was simply that they're dense. There's a lot of information, and how would we be able to support families and students in understanding quickly the urgency of the changes in the policy? So we did create one-page handouts. I believe you have them in your packets. They look like this. One is for the high school, and one is for the pre-K to 8 audience. And so we will be blasting these out through our schools to families, on our website, on our social media platforms, as a way to sort of start to communicate what the changes are. Do you have questions about the one page? Do you need copies?
They have them all in front of them.
Okay.
They have all the materials.
John?
Pat?
Denise, I just have a suggestion. You're in the midst of a registration policy. Could this be included as part of the discussion with the new families that are coming into our district where it's a focus?
Yeah, if you all vote to approve them tonight, we'll start handing them out tomorrow. That's absolutely. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do you want me to proceed with this?
Yes, please.
Okay, terrific. So, good evening. I'm happy to be back presenting on a third piece of our family engagement policy proposals. I was here in June, and hopefully, yay, all right. For context, I was here in June. I presented on 2 new family engagement policy proposals, one which was an overarching policy on family and student engagement. The second was an updated policy on student voice, I believe called student involvement in decision-making. As with the first two, this third proposal was crafted over the past year as a collaborative effort with the Family Engagement Partnership Council. As a reminder, that is a district-wide council that is a group of collaborative stakeholders involving students, parents, educators, school leaders, community members, as well as central office staff. We worked across the school year to draft policies or revise or make suggestions to revise policies that we thought were more reflective of current practices and promising practices. This school leadership team policy is an update to an existing policy with a key change that expands on the structure of school leadership teams to be more inclusive of all stakeholders in the school community with an eye to expanded shared decision-making. The summary of changes are basically this. In 2005 policy, the school leadership team was comprised of a team of educators working with school leaders to make school-based decisions. So it was recognized that local decision-making was good and appropriate, but at the time limited that shared decision-making to just educators. The proposed revision includes additional stakeholders. So there would be an equal number of parents as educators on the school leadership team. There would also be the addition of one or more community partners. And at the high school level, there would be the addition of one or more high school students. And certainly that could happen in lower grades, but it would be a requirement for high school. The important thing to know about this policy is two things. One is that these changes would put us in compliance with state regulations. State regulations call for exactly what's there in the orange bullet, but more importantly, it's the right thing to do. It is about really having the opportunity for involving the people who benefit or are part of the decisions that are made. So with rather than for, as we say. So why shared decision making? I want to spend just a moment on that. We recognize localized decision making is a good thing. As I said, we've had it this way. Our current policy from 2005 outlines localized decision making. Again, doing with rather than for, directly involving those people who are impacted by the decisions really expands the opportunity for buy-in and for implementation to be successful. And then we think about thick versus thin engagement. And there is really a place for both. It's really a question of when and how do we take advantage of opportunities to expand shared decision making. And in this model, you'll see that the new policy outlines the pieces that are required through state regulation. So there's an adoption of schools' education goals, review and approve the school's proposed budget, formulate the school improvement plan, review the student handbook for students in grades 9 through 12. Those are the regulations. That would not preclude the school leadership team from looking at other areas that might be important to the school. Could be attendance issues. It could be collaboration on the homeschool compact. Development of it. It could be discussion of after-school programming, or even while the district has a uniform policy, schools are allowed to make decisions about what that uniform looks like. So that could be another place for that to happen. One second. So school leadership teams. One of the things that's important to know is that we recognize that this is a change for our schools. And we are working on strategies to help schools transition. So right now, many schools have teacher leadership teams. Those teacher leadership teams function currently in the exact same way school leadership teams do. we're working with schools to help them figure out how do those two teams coexist and collaborate. So one example is that they really are a feedback loop for each other. There are members of the teacher leadership team who sit on the school leadership team, but the teacher leadership team is the group that's on the ground in the school every day, and they can really think about what's operational and bring those challenges or suggestions to life back to the school leadership team. So that is one strategy. In addition, we are, as I said, we've reached out and met with the school leaders to talk about these changes and to answer their questions. We worked with members, some of the principals who served on the Family Engagement Partnership Council to co-create an FAQ for schools to support them with this work. And then finally, the members of the Family Resource Center, the Family Engagement Liaisons, will continue to be coaches for implementing this change. That's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Questions? Can I just ask, we had a subcommittee on this, and Pat, were you the person who took the lead on that from the,
I didn't, I was on the attendance policy.
you were on
That's,
attendance?
it was an attendance policy
That
committee
was
that
the
you had.
attendance policy
Yes.
one
Yeah.
from June, which we, gotcha,
Yes.
okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Any questions on the policies here? Jess?
So, I think I asked this last time. I'm just like, I love my school, so please, LAE folks, don't think I'm throwing you under the bus here. But I don't think that they've kind of implemented this, or if they like, there hasn't been parent notification that I know of around like the budget or creating a school leadership team or other things that I've gotten. So I guess what's the process around holding schools accountable? And
Sure.
and is that, and this is something that should have been in effect or is in effect, or what?
It's
what's
brand
it?
new.
Okay, all right, okay.
So let me back up. Your 2005 policy, our 2005 policy, is called school leadership teams, but it is virtually educators and the school leader. So you would have
Okay.
not been involved or been invited. The new policy brings us up to comply or in compliance with state regulations. And the Family Engagement Partnership Council really looked at this as an opportunity for more shared decision making. So as soon as this is voted upon, which would be the next meeting, we would begin working with schools to do the outreach around how to begin creating these newly expanded school leadership teams.
Okay, so that does bring me to my follow-up question, which is that I have some familiarity with the workload at the Family Resource Center currently, and so what's the capacity to implement that? Well,
I have total faith, and I appreciate you understanding that we're incredibly busy. But we understand, since this will be voted on in September, we will work with schools to get this up and running in the fall. And as I said, we met with all the schools and really had conversations around how could this look. So I don't think it'll be work that we're starting from point zero. I'm confident that we can add this, but thank you for asking and
so-
appreciating.
So we're deploying existing capacity towards these ends. We're
We
not
are.
adding
You know, it's
capacity.
part of our strategic plan, where we pulled back, where we're adding.
Okay,
It's all good.
all right.
Thank you, though.
Other questions? Pat?
Just a comment, Denise, when I read this over, it looks like the old school improvement councils. Is that what we're talking about in this policy? Because I remember, going back in the dark ages when I was at the LAE, we had to have a group comprised of equal teachers, parents, and a community member, and those parents needed to be voted from the population of the school. So this looks similar to that old school improvement council.
Yeah, the name has changed throughout the years, but the structure and purpose has pretty much remained, Pat. We met with the principals today, and one of your former colleagues also mentioned that she has memory of it as well, so yes.
Yeah, I think it's just gone through variations over the
Okay.
years.
Other questions? All right, at this time, we're going to take a brief recess, and Denise, if you wouldn't mind just coming up here for a second. Thanks, we're in recess. So I am going to take this as including the briefings that we received in June. These are 5 separate policies, so we're going to do 5 separate votes. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a new policy with subject titled Student Involvement in Decision-Making. So let me say that, and I'll use the right tone of voice this time. I won't cut it off dramatically.
So moved, so moved.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve a new policy entitled Student Involvement in Decision-Making.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. The policy is adopted. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a new policy entitled Family and Student Engagement, and also labeled Section A, Foundations and Basic Commitments.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
At this time, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. The policy has been adopted. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a new policy entitled Attendance Pre-Kindergarten through Grade 8.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
At this time, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. The policy has been adopted. At this time, the chair would entertain a new policy entitled Attendance Record Keeping Grades PK through 8.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. The policy has been adopted. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a new policy entitled Attendance High School.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The proposed policy has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. The policy has been adopted. Okay. Next on the agenda, I'm going to turn it back to the superintendent relative to end of year summary and goals.
Thank you. So in your materials, I have a memo to Chair Connolly on the summary of my goals. I'll walk you through this, but this has been an opportunity for me to do some reflecting, and I realize that it has been an incredible year for myself, with my team, and overall, a very, very good year. I just wanted to walk us through the goals and a bit of a summary of the goals. So the first one is a professional practice goal, and as you recall, this is to participate in the new superintendent induction program, which I successfully completed this year. This program I am part of the new induction program, which has 42 new superintendents. It's the largest to date that the state has had. It included opportunities for me to be reflective with other colleagues who are in the same year as I am. It includes a lot of leadership learning, including readings, and then it also includes coaching sessions by Carla Baer. Carla has joined us in previous meetings, and this upcoming year, I will continue to participate. This program is a 3-year program, so I have 2 more years of the program, and Carla will be with us. In addition, I also participated in the Urban Superintendent Network. This is particularly important for me because, as you know, urban districts have unique challenges. And so my colleagues in that cohort are very skilled, they're very experienced, and so I look for quite a bit of insight and wisdom when I join that group. The next goal was the district improvement goal. This is about executing effective entry and direction setting, and of course about keeping momentum in a year of transition. So as you all know and remember, I completed my 100-day listening tour, and this was incredibly important as I was doing analysis of the district and learning more and understanding the strengths and the opportunities for growth. The memo is included here in your materials, but as a reminder, there were big findings in this memo that included themes important to us as we move forward, such as the high school redesign plan, and then strengthening the systems to support our at-risk students. As a result of that work, there were some key leadership decisions that were made to include our assistant superintendents, 2 of them, the redesign of our student support services office, and then the additional time allocated to the high school with the new assistant superintendent. The next goal here is fostering an effective district governance model and transparent board and superintendent relationship. I meet with Chair Connolly on a weekly basis, and we're in very close communication about all matters of the district. We co-create board agendas and maintain a frequent and transparent communication. As you all recall, John has served as a consultant in confidence in all kinds of tricky issues that surface throughout the district, and he was instrumental in helping us design a robust and collaborative budget process that gave us increased voice and respected the open architecture, as well as were in line with the financial goals. I've also tried throughout the year to be in communication with you all. I can certainly do better. It's been sort of mixed with board members. I will continue to make significant efforts to be in close communication with you all on different matters and your expertise. And so I will continue to have this as a goal for next year. The next one is maintaining momentum during the leadership transition and keeping the district moving forward throughout the year with the current turnaround plan and goals. And so I really prioritized my time with our schools. I made visibility a priority and included lots of visits to the high school, of course, and to all of the other schools. This gave me quite a bit of insight into our teaching and learning, into the operations, family community engagement, and just a better understanding of the district. And as I just mentioned, it did help for the restructuring of student services, and then the hiring of key district leadership. I also kept weekly meetings with central office leadership team, daily communication, and monthly one-on-one discussions with the leadership team. Finally, the student learning goal was to reduce chronic absenteeism. And in your materials, you will see the unofficial data of our attendance. What you will see is that the efforts that we had were quite significant throughout the spring that included data sharing with various stakeholders, a root cause analysis, and then finally, school by school implemented various strategies and initiatives to support this effort. What you see in the data is that we have made progress in the lower grades, particularly grades 1 through 8, and that we continue to have challenges in the high school, which will remain a priority for us. I'm happy to take questions. Again, this is a brief summary. We will have, of course, more in-depth information and data as the evaluation progress continues.
Questions or comments? Okay.
No, just, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Just want to thank the superintendent for providing us with this highlight of her past year with us, and I think she has summed it up in a very good way for us to understand a little bit more, especially having seen the work that was done during the past year. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Pat?
I too want to thank the superintendent for this, and I was wondering if she would consider doing some kind of an annual highlights of the school year. I think there were many successes of the district, and it needs to get out into the public that this, you know, your first year and all the successes that have happened in the district, it would be good to have that out in the media so that our parents and our families know what has happened. Almost like a year in review.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'll work with leadership and see what I can draft and review it with you all before sharing it with others.
I just wanted to say that I really thought that one of the highlights of your performance this year was the listening tour and the presence in the schools, and it wasn't just like 1 or 2 visits to each school, but multiple visits at different times to really get to know folks. And I just hope you continue that trend of being super present, and let's, you know, add in a little more time with the parents to that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's one of my favorite things about the superintendency, which is being in schools and getting to be in classrooms with kids and teachers. That practice will continue. I've already set up my initial 2 months worth of visits, and I will be inviting you all, so I hope that you can join me.
Great.
Yep.
All right, next up is another contract to authorize. It's a good sport. It's a release agreement with the nonprofit Good Sports. Superintendent, do you want to give us a brief overview, or have someone from your team? I have it right here. Yeah. Sports.
Yep. So we're in partnership with Good Sports, and this is just us being authorized to receive donations from this nonprofit.
Okay, so at this time, Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the superintendent to enter into a donation and release agreement with Good Sports, Inc., a nonprofit that donates sports equipment to schools and communities. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries, and we have authorized the superintendent to enter into this contract. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the LAE Board meeting on June 12th, 2019.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Abstain.
We have one abstention, and the motion carries. We have one more item on LAE Board Materials based on requests from board members at prior meetings. I know Ventura worked on this with Joan. Ventura, I don't know if you could brief us on that.
Sure. As the minutes from the last meeting reflect, one of the last things was a brief conversation we had as an LAE board about just materials. And you know, I think some of the themes were wanting to make sure that all board members receive not only the agenda, but all materials with enough time to review them ahead of time. And then there was a question about what would actually be available in printed form, you know, once we arrived at the meeting. So Joan and I spent a little bit of time sort of reviewing notes from that meeting. And I think we offer this just as some initial thoughts that we'd love some reactions to. So there's nothing to vote on right now, but wanted to share a bit about some of the discussion we had and sort of thinking where this could be heading. So as you all currently know, the agenda, gets sent out at least 48 hours in advance, if not sooner. And so our commitment would be that not only the agenda, but all board materials, so anything that has to be reviewed. And again, this is what happened for this meeting as well, gets sent out 72 hours in advance, 48 to 72 hours in advance for all board members. And again, that just ensures that you all have all the materials way ahead of time. You can prepare and come to the meetings. I think one of the changes we're proposing and would love some feedback on is once we email the information to the board members, we would also want to make, through a link on the LPS website, the materials available so that you can, if we send you the agenda with a hyperlink, you click on it and there's a place on the web where the materials live. So you don't have to sift through all your emails finding, everything that was sent, but, it allows you as board members to go to the LPS website, click on the link. All the materials are there for this meeting. Once the meeting concludes, that's where the minutes would be updated as well. It allows, I think, another layer of access for non-LAE members, for the public, to be able to click on that LPS website ahead of time and see all the materials that also were shared with board members, 48 hours, 72 hours in advance. And then another change we would propose is that given that everyone has access to the materials ahead of time, you would be reviewing them ahead of time, that, not for next meeting, but maybe we'd be moving towards a world where we actually don't have Joan print every single document and have a binder ready for us, but instead we'd be bringing either a laptop or an electronic device. And if we don't have one, I think preliminarily we're saying maybe the district could make arrangements to loan one to LAE members so that it eliminates the need to just print. And so the sort of the cost in both the paper but also the time that it takes staff to create these. And again, the assumptions that we will have all already reviewed these, and I know we did even for this meeting. So having them all in paper copy here, makes not a lot of sense. So again, the big pitch is that it's environmentally friendly. There's cost reduction on the material, but also in the time and effort that it takes. And just, this greater role, and I've heard this board talk about it so many times this year about transparency and wanted to make sure that materials are accessible to the public. These are some of the thoughts that, based on your feedback from the last meeting, we sort of put together. So, Chair, I don't think this is a formal motion. It's more just wanting to come back at the request of the board and share some initial thoughts. And so, I'm not sure, happy to entertain just some general reactions, or, maybe go from there.
I appreciate the good work on it. Anyone who wants to comment or
think
give a thumbs up?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea for both the environmental and the access reasons. So I'm fully in favor.
I also like the idea because, right now we leave the documents here because
Yeah.
these binders are heavy. But if we have it electronically, we can go back and revisit some of the information that we even saw on the meeting on that day. So,
Any other comments?
So I don't know if we need to, I'm looking at Joan. I think Joan and I would be very happy to start implementing something like this for next meeting, but I don't know if it
Yeah.
requires like a formal vote, or if this is just more in the organization and we can play with it for next meeting.
process.
Yeah, we don't need to
Okay.
take a vote.
So if
but
you're
we'll
good, we're
just-
gonna test this out.
Yeah.
okay.
And I think what I would say, though, is if anyone would like all the materials printed, I think Joan and I have said, that's fine, there's gonna be a transition. So I'd say just email Joan directly and we can make arrangements. But otherwise, we'll
Yeah,
email this out
electronic.
as a reminder, and this is the process we'll follow.
Sounds good.
Great. Excellent. Jess?
Am I allowed, I have two comments about totally different things. Is that?
Yeah, before we adjourn, are there any final comments or questions any board
Yeah.
members want to make? Yep.
I just had a question. Oh, sorry, this is not on. Thank you. So I assume we lost Gabby because she graduated, and I'm wondering what the process is for getting another student representative on. And I was also wondering whether it's worth discussing whether that person should be a junior, not a senior, because then they could have 2 years on and get a little more, immersion into this, or if it's better to have a senior and rotate it year to year. And maybe this is something we want to discuss next time, but I just wanted to flag it as if like we, don't have a student rep now, and that's something we had committed to, so.
Yep. So I think that we will follow up on that. We need everybody back to school, and we will, go through a similar process as last time, and it is a point well taken that we might want to think about a junior.
Okay. And then the second thing was I just wanted to give a little shout out because the Adult Learning Center and the Family Resource Center and Northern Essex Community College and Lawrence Community Works had been working together with LPS on a parent to paraprofessional training program, which has been really great. And we just got word this morning that our 9th graduate got hired by LPS. So that was exciting. So I just wanted to share that.
That's great. All right.
John, just a point, going back to the materials. Perhaps we should have the agenda printed for the meetings, only for the benefit of the people in attendance. Just that one item.
Yep.
Okay.
Fair enough. Any other comments from board members, superintendent? All right, before we adjourn, I just very quickly want to thank Dave and his team for everything that they do to put these meetings together. Thank you very much. I want to give a huge thanks to Joan, and the board materials discussion was an appropriate way to end. Joan had, you saw all the votes we took tonight, and she had to pull everything together and get it out to board members in a timely fashion to give them enough time to review it, and that it includes a whole bunch of materials that we weren't voting on, but people needed to see. So Joan, thank you for all of your hard work on that.
Yeah, so today we're meeting here because North Common was unavailable. We're still working on a roofing project, but we will resume our meetings in the North Common.
Okay. Well, that's a bummer. I'm sorry to my HLC folks here about that. I'm sorry. Yes, Pat.
Revisit the idea of taking this board to different schools and meeting in different schools?
We can revisit that, and which then sends me like a lamb to the slaughter with all the folks who are going to have to prep the meetings at different locations each time. So perhaps we can have a discussion about that in September. Would that be okay? All right. I love going to North Commons. Just want to say that. All right, my last closing thing, Joan, thank you very much, was just I want to welcome Marciel and Maricel again, and I just want to note that Denise and Anne Marie were like really awesome examples of keeping their presentations and slides to like 15 minutes or less, and that is like loved by the board, and I just can't stress it enough how awesome they were on that. And I'm a huge Mary Toomey fan, but she has 45 slide presentations that are show the depth of her commitment and knowledge of what she does. But Marciel and Maricel, welcome. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Hi.
Anyone opposed? All right. At this time, we are adjourned. Thank you.